SaaS Therapy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of SaaS Therapy, the show where we help you save your most important business relationships, your customers. My name is Todd Kirk. I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Trujillo, and we have an awesome guest on the show today, Noah Little, who I'm really pumped to meet. I've been following Noah a little bit on LinkedIn for a while. Noah is a Canadian, which is also awesome. We learned he loves hockey a little bit earlier today, and he's an enterprise CSM at Recharge Payments, and he's currently living in another frozen wilderness, Finland. So we're super pumped to have him here. Noah, welcome to SaaS Therapy, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me. Really looking forward to tonight.
Noah, okay, give people a little bit about a context background, why you're so awesome and why we had you on here. I mean, your LinkedIn post, if you're not following Noah, go do it. Some amazing, great content, thought leadership. But Noah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been a customer success manager for almost 6 years now. Around 2 years ago, I helped a few of my friends get out of some really bad companies, really underpaid and overlooked. So I helped them get out, and they said, hey, you should go, start posting on LinkedIn, get more people out of their crummy jobs and help people. And I was like, who's going to listen to me? They're like, just trust us. And so fast forward 2 years later, I've helped 113 CSMs get new jobs around the world, Australia, Canada, America, all over Europe. And I've just been so blessed to be able to help these people change their lives and change that of their families. And it's just such a fulfilling feeling to be part of that process with people and for them to have the trust in me. And when it comes to thought leadership, I just think I'm saying a lot of things that the CSMs are maybe a little bit too scared to say online. And so I want to be that voice for them, that beacon of just reality of what we're all facing in 2025 as customer success managers in inflation, in potential recession, but also in the rage of AI, where some people's jobs are being taken away. So I'm really just here to be honest, to be a realist, and to hopefully give value to people that tune into my stuff.
Okay. I think you went past this too fast, and maybe people listening, either exercising or they're driving. I think they missed the 113 jobs that you helped CSMs find. Like, how in the world do you do that? Were these people that have never been CSMs? I'm sure the experience varied across all of these different individuals, but like, what are some best practices that you would share with them and help them see, like, hey, you can do this? Like, I mean, 113, that's a good sample size, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm super grateful for it. It just started organically. There's been CSMs who have 5 years experience. There's people who've had 1 year experience. I've helped account executive. I've helped mortgage specialists. I've helped ads people. I've helped insurance brokers. And I think what actually is the commonality between all that is the people who are willing to do the work. Because you can be an account executive with no experience, or you can be a 5-year CSM with lots of experience. But what makes people successful is the work. And I always tell people, you cannot fail if you do not quit. And that really is the name of the game in the job hunt in 2025. If you do not stop, you're going to get a job. It's the people that stop, they give in, and they do something else. Or they just give up entirely, and they stay in their job where they're underpaid, they're overlooked, and they're undervalued. 113. It's been a crazy ride coming up on 2 years.
Well, and I know in your background, right, you've been a CSM now for a long time, and you've been a CSM at different companies too. So you've had a chance to make that shift yourself personally. What would you say your journey as a CSM has been like? And is it typical for what you think most people go through as far as becoming a CSM? Because that might be helpful for people who are trying to determine, am I currently in an overlooked seat and I need to make a change? What's your journey been like personally? And has it been typical or not?
Definitely not typical. So I was in my PhD for neuroscience. So I dropped out. I was completely lost. I was driving Uber around Toronto. I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? I'm not going to be Dr. Little anymore. Who am I? And I got into a tech company in Toronto. I was employee number 23, starting in support. And I truly did not know that a customer success manager was a job. I knew a salesperson was a job. I knew an engineer was a job. I knew marketing was a job. But I never knew that there was somebody who was that link between the company and the customer. So I started off that SMB account manager, customer success manager. I was there for almost 3 years, went my way up from support to CSM to senior CSM to manager. Lived through the COVID times as a manager, so that was, a really impactful experience for me because it was very scary. I can still remember telling my team, 2 weeks at home, no big deal. 4 weeks at home, no big deal. 6 weeks at home. And I think by like week 9 or 10, I just shut up and like, okay, this is what we're doing. Um, from there, I then jumped to another startup. It was very small, it was 10 people. Worked the largest brands in the world, Facebook China, Facebook UK, Sephora, VaynerMedia. And then most recently, I've been at Recharge for just over 3 years as of last month, been with the largest subscription brands across Europe and across APAC region. So I would say that it really hasn't been a typical experience to land here. But from other
Yeah.
CSMs, they typically go through that SMB to mid-market to enterprise.
Right.
And typically either people go up to leadership or they go kind of stay in that echelon. So it's been a wild ride, absolutely amazing. I never thought when I was, writing grants and writing conference papers and publishing that I'd be like, in a few years, you're going to drop out and you're going to be, talking about customer success all day. So yeah, it's definitely been a change of life.
Oh, that's awesome, Noah. Well, one of the things that we try to pride ourselves on here at SaaS Therapy is we want to give people not just thought leadership, not just strategic ideas to go and look at, but we like to get pretty tactical. And you had a phenomenal post. Again, I mentioned this at the start. Go follow Noah. You're going to get some great nuggets on the posts that he makes. But you had one just recently you called the Revenue Impact Framework. What is it? Why is a CSM? Should I care about it? And how do I put it into action? Teach us a little bit here. Give us the wisdom, Noah. Drop a little knowledge on us.
For sure. So a lot of people talk about value. And I actually don't look at it as value. I look at it as revenue because all businesses are revenue. That's all they care about. It doesn't matter if you're your engineer, your marketing, your sales, your CSM. At the end of the day, are you bringing in money, or in the CSM echelon, are you holding money? And what a lot of CSMs struggle to do is depict that and to showcase that. So for example, if you're a CSM and you had a company that was looking to cancel on you, they're going to go to a competitor, but you managed to save them and they're worth $1 million. You not only kept in $1 million, but for every year that they stood and they stayed at that company, you were actually adding on every single year, year over year. And what actually I've learned from a former CFO of mine, he told me CSM is the most critical role of any growing company because you can bring in as much new clients as you want, but how long do they stay? That's going to lead to an acquisition. That's going to lead to an IPO event. And going back to the framework, it's actually talking through how are you doing that? Are you salvaging risk? Are you securing a contract from 1 year to 3 years? Are you upselling across a larger suite of tools that's making them more sticky? Are they more entrenched with your product? Are you getting case studies that 1,000 people are seeing? Are you going for conferences that's getting your company a lot of viewership, a lot of eyeballs on them? So revenue can always come back to your dollars. I think a lot of customer success managers think I had a good NPS score or had a high CSAT or I have good recommendation letters. Like nobody cares, right? Like in 2025, nobody cares about your CSAT or your NPS. They care how much was your book of business, how much did you hold on to year over year, and how much did you grow that? And so I think a lot of people struggle to talk about that because they don't want to sound as if they're boasting or they're showing off. But I always tell my clients, I'm like, if you are stating a fact, it is not showing off. So for example, if I say, hey, I salvaged a client worth $1 million, or I did an upsell for 250K, that's not me bragging. That is me just stating a fact. So it always has to tie back to revenue because all that people care about is revenue. In 2022, 2023, when I was a CSM, it was a lot of relationship building and CSAT and your clients like you. And of course, that is important, but that is like baseline now. In 2025, all your CRO, all your CEO, all the CFO cares about is the customer success management team keeping revenue, expanding revenue, and growing revenue across a long time horizon. And I think a lot of people forget that. A lot of people think that it's all about the relationship building and the friendships and all this back and forth. And it is part of it. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at the line items, did that book of business grow? Did it shrink? Did you expand it? And what was your hand in that?
No,
Okay.
Okay. I got Todd. I got to just make one
No,
additional comment.
it's my turn. You shut your mouth.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Okay. It seems so simple. I can't remember who came up with this, and Todd always geeks out on this stuff, so he'll tell me who. But there's that your brain, when it starts to notice something, right? Like if I'm about ready to buy a Tesla, and all of a sudden I've never seen Teslas on the road, but once I have it in my mind, I'm going to buy a Tesla, I can't stop seeing Teslas everywhere. And I'm like, wait, they're everywhere, right? It's such a simple mind shift. You're not doing anything really different as a CSM. what you're focusing your attention to is revenue in all the different ways that you're generating revenue, which you're doing probably today. And when you change the mindset to I'm a revenue generator, I'm a revenue maker, you will start to not only spot ways you're doing it, but you will see new opportunities in how to increase it. Noah, that was a gem, man. Go back, re-listen to that one, everybody. That was awesome. Sorry, Todd. I just had to just rubber stamp that bad boy and say amen.
That's okay. It's called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon, by the way. Or the thing I prefer more is the Tetris effect. That's a little bit easier to remember. It's like when you play Tetris, you start to see Tetris everywhere. So, so for me, Noah, the thing that stuck out in what you mentioned, and when I think about your path, right? You said you started in support. And what's interesting is a lot of the organizations that I see or that we talk to today, most of their CS orgs were born out of support. They started that way. Many of them may even still live like within support as far as how they're structured. And I think that's why that relationship mindset comes around, because they always felt like, well, it's not my job to keep the customer or to make the customer happy or to grow the customer. It's just my job to make sure that the customer is like sufficient, that they're not stuck or broken or mad. And so that shift, have you noticed in the world, in the way that you're working, are people starting to redefine the way CS orgs are structured and where they fit within the organization, or are they just redefining the job description? And so there's still that wrestle and that understanding. So that's my first question. I have a follow-up for you, but I'd be curious your thoughts. Are you starting to see companies not just like tell them to do different things, but also even restructure?
Yes, I'm seeing both. So I think when it comes to restructuring, I'm seeing, and you're totally right. When I started at that 23-person company, I would support onboarding, implementation, maintenance and renewal, right? But then as we grew, okay, you had the support team, then you had the implementation team, and then you had the CSMs, right? So I do think it's being a lot more siloed with really intensive cross communication. Because at a large org like I'm at right now, we have an entire support org, we have an entire implementation org, we have an entire CSM org, and you need those swim lanes in order to define what's important. But I also want to revisit what you tapped on. You said the relationship piece. I'll never forget my first churn when I was at that 23-person company. It was for a moving company, and we were for a digital marketing suite of tools. And I remember so clearly, Florida moving company, I was doing all the work for them. I was sending out the review requests. I was on WhatsApp with them. I'm like, all right, how are you doing this week? And I remember when he said, hey, we're going to a competitor. I was like, John, how are you going to a competitor on me? I've helped you through this for months. I've been doing all your work. I've been showing you all the value. And it really solidified a point in my mind, this is back in 2019, by the way, that relationships only have a limit to how much can be extracted of value. And even at the enterprise level, I have incredible relationships. I have many CEOs, many CFOs who their companies make $500 million a year. I have them on WhatsApp. If they were to find a competitor that did exactly what my product did, they wouldn't be thinking about, oh, well, we'd lose Noah. Like, I'm pretty good, President's Club, etc. But like, there's still something beyond that. There's product compatibility, that's tech stack needs, that's how does that CTO look at you versus a competitor. There's internal business inner workings that are happening behind the scenes. So I think now what people are really focusing on is retention at all costs. So yes, a relationship helps. Yes, great SLAs help. Yes, you don't want to have a poor product. Yes, you want to have product feedback so they can influence the roadmap. Yes, you want to have different things that are all cumulative factors. But I really think that we are pivoting to the relationship focal point to driving business outcomes focal points. And every single company that's done, for example, Salesforce. So once somebody gets Salesforce, they're good. Trust me, they probably don't even know who the CSM was, let alone the account manager. They just paid $500,000 for an implementation. But how my company uses Salesforce and how maybe Spotify uses Salesforce or Shopify uses Salesforce is completely different. So that CSM is going to be having to adapt to those specific business needs for them. And the same thing with my own world. So I work in subscriptions. I have many clients. They all use the platform very, very differently, and I have to adapt to their needs. I'm very grateful that a lot of them like me. I know them very well. They sent me lots of birthday wishes and lots of baby wishes. I just had a new baby. And so that's amazing. That feels great. But I know that despite the relationship level, I have to keep the revenue in at all costs. Is that a price reduction? Is that a feature introduction? Is that giving them more executive sponsorship? Is that doing an RFP against my competitor? Again, it comes all the way back to revenue. things are changing. It's not like in 2020 days when people could just get, sales every single day and money was thrown out the window for funding. Now it is, how long can you hold your customers? And if you are holding them, what levers are you pulling that they actually extend that timeline, they extend that horizon? Because that's the only way that's going to work now. And I think the responsibilities have shifted now from a CSM being a revenue-driven organization as opposed to a support or relationship, because those are critical, but that is already part of the game. Now it's, hey, I have to fire 30% of my team. I have to reduce my tech stack. Are you going to stay on, or am I getting rid of you guys as well? And a lot of CSMs weren't used to that. They were used to in 2021, 2022, maybe in 2023, where it's like, we have money for everything. Now people are thinking in businesses and corporations, what do we really need? People are going very lean these days. And we're seeing that across the board from, it could be Apple, it could be Microsoft, it could be Shopify and Spotify. Everybody is trimming the fat. And those are CSMs behind those vendor relationships. So that's why it becomes down to, can you keep your customer alive? Which by definition means, can you keep the money in the bank at your company? That's why I'm doing the change, which I'm very forward with. And I love that because I've always recognized my job as a CSM to keep the money. That's what the job is. Retain the customer at all cost. I've done crazy things. 2 years ago, a customer was going to cancel me on London. I flew out on my birthday. I don't care, it's my birthday. I don't make a big deal out of it. I mean, I had my birthday at Burger King's. My son was born a day before that. So I'm like, by myself at Burger King having a milkshake. I'm like, happy birthday, happy 34. It didn't matter to me. I flew out to London, saved the client, flew back to Finland. You do what is required. Is it a 2 o'clock in the morning call? Do you have to wake up and call to Australia to save them? Do what is required. It is no longer the 9 to 5 because there's another company out there that's willing to go the extra mile. And if your CSM crew is not willing to do that, then that company, that customer will go find another place that will have those CSMs that are willing to go the extra mile for them and therefore keep the revenue and keep that relationship longer. So that's why I fight so hard. That's why many of my colleagues have called me a psychopath, which is fine, right? I'm happy that they label me that because it just shows my commitment to my customers and my company to drive revenue outcomes.
Okay, so Noah, I preach. I'm with you on all this stuff. One of the things that's fascinating is Casey and I did a survey at a conference. We had an audience like 100 people. And we asked them like, what would you say the top definition of your job is as a CSM is? And by far, like I don't remember what the percentage was, Casey, but it was at least 65% of people said their number one definition of their job is as a relationship manager. Now you're saying they need to not give up on the relationship, but you need to shift your focus from just support and relationship to keeping in money. Love that. What do you say to people? Because I would say that there's a lot of people who don't come into the CSM role with that mindset. And as a result, they actually feel kind of icky. Like, I'm not a sales guy. I'm like, this is not my job. I feel weird, like putting pressure on my customer to renew or sign a contract or do 3 years instead of 1. Cause, there's so much empathy built into so many people who go into the CSM role where they see they are on the same side as the customer. And that actually can be detrimental in the sense that if the customer doesn't want to renew, they're like, well, I want to do what's best for you and you don't want to renew, so I'm out, right? What would you say to people who are struggling with that mindset shift to actually instead of being like, no, I represent my company and I need to keep you as a customer, from like, no, I'm part of your team and I'll do whatever you want forever. And, I'm just here to support you. That's a big mindset shift for some people. How do you help people make that mindset shift?
I made a post about this, of course, about a year ago. And I said, the new CSM breed is a different athlete. And I said, it's no longer about relationships. It's about revenue. It's about negotiation, but it's also about being consultative. And so to your question, Todd, it's like, oh, I'm a relationship manager. It's like, that is the bare minimum. That is the bare minimum today. And so for me, if I'm trying to do an expansion for my clients, I will not push an expansion through anybody's business until I'm 100% sure that product solves that problem. I have to be 100% sure. Is the product not fully baked in? Is the company not even ready to dedicate the hours and resources to that new upgrade? Because you have to be so certain. Because if you come in there with a very large quota and you're just selling, and they buy the product, and 6 months later they say, hey, you know what? We never should have brought that product, but you told us it would be good for our business. Now you just kill the relationship. Now you put revenue at risk. Why? Because you're trying to hit a quota number. You were better off not hitting your quota and having that relationship ready when it's ripe maybe a year from now to do an upsell. Even myself, like sometimes I've had clients who we have a new product. It may take a year for them to say, hey, you know what? I see the value now. I see a need. I'm ready to take that step. Perfect. But if I would have been pressuring them and pushing them and egging them on, you got to get it. It's going to be amazing. It's so good. How do you think that feels? And so to the CSMs that are basically feeling icky about it, it is a very fine line because you have to have your company's best interest and your customer's best interest. And I think that's what makes the best CSMs, where you can balance the two. So the customer really needs a discount. Can your company afford a discount? They want 20%. Well, maybe we can do 10. And then I think when you mentioned it's a relationship management point, it's like, yeah, of course, but that could be said for like a salesperson. A salesperson has to have a good relationship, good presence, good communication. But what do they have to do? They have to be able to negotiate. They have to be able to influence. And what are they doing? They're showing a logical step and process of deduction as to why somebody should be purchasing their product. So any CSM who is now 2025, they feel the ick about negotiation. They feel the ick about upselling. They feel the ick about maybe a customer wants to leave. Well, again, I'm kind of direct. I'm pretty brutal. Maybe this is not the role for you. Because I think, as you mentioned, people come into this thinking like, I'm just gonna be best friends with everybody. Everybody will love me. I'm like, I love to be liked. Like, I want people to like me. Like, no little likes being liked by people. Genuinely, I do. But I've had many clients who just don't like me. We get along great, and they've been with me for 3 or 4 years. That's fine. Because the relationship doesn't matter to me, to them rather, as much as it does to the performance of the platform and the product. Because that's what will keep people there. I plan to have, they talk to me all the time. I have clients who maybe aren't as fond as me. But what do I need to do in order to keep all those clients intact? And you have to be super adaptable. I think my biggest skill set is my level of EQ. And CSMs have to be able to come and identify, is this a pace moving business? Is this maybe a slower moving organization? And who do I need to talk to? What levers do I need to pull? And when do I need to approach it? And I always say, like, times are going to be changing in 2025. If you can't handle negotiation, if you can't handle a renewal conversation, if you can't handle an upsell conversation, then like really what are you doing? Like what type of revenue are you driving to the organization if all you're doing is schmoozing back and forth? There's no ROI for the company. You shouldn't even have a job. A chatbot, an AI chatbot can do that for you. Right? Talk to ChatGPT, they'll make you feel good. They know all of our stuff already. So hopefully that answers your question where like I can see why they think it's a relationship management. But the reality is when you have a goal of churn, you have a goal of expansion, you have a goal of renewal, that is how you are measured, not how nice people think you are or how lovely they think you are, which kind of sounds harsh, but I think it's true.
No, not at all. No, I think it's just truth. I'm curious on your thoughts, and I'm going to take us down a different topic. And this is just us talking. Okay, so I'm not saying, hey, I would do this at your organization or I'm doing this at my organization. I am interested though, as I've talked to different thought leaders out there. Is there a time where the CSM does not come included with a subscription, where you ask the customer, if you want strategy, if you want this type of higher level thinking, you subscribe to it. It's a CSM, you get X amount of hours, and here's what a CSM would do. They can do these things, and it's very detailed out. Do you think that would change the perception? Because everybody gives a CSM nowadays. And let's be honest, every CSM isn't the same CSM. They might have a vendor that has an amazing CSM that does all these things, another CSM that just checks in, another CSM that just wants to do a quarterly business review because that's how they get measured, another CSM that wants you to fill out their NPS score because that's how they get measured. Is there a time where you think someone will say, you know what? You want the subscription, you just want support and installation? Great, it comes included. You want strategy, you want someone to help you hit the business results we've been talking about. Here's the cost for that. What are your thoughts on that? Does that have any merit? I'm curious on your thoughts.
100%. 100%. And let's just use a really broad example. Like let's use a Zapier, right? The automation tool. We probably all use it. We've all played around and screwed up our triggers. So you can buy Zapier or Zapier, depending on how you pronounce it. And it works fine. Once a day I get an email, sends an autoresponder, fine. But what if you want to do crazy things? You want to have Slack automated messages. You want to have Gmail automated messages. You want to have, when you send a Slack message, it uploads to your Zendesk, then it triggers a Salesforce report, and a task comes through, and then your Jira gets updated. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I could probably go on YouTube and figure it out and go through the help desk. But a CSM bypasses that pain. And furthermore, A CSM knows best practices, right? And I think that's really what you're paying for. So I think in my world, in your world, in any world, a CSM has the knowledge on top of the platform because the CSM knows how you should be best using it. They know the best practices. They know the product inside and out. That's why I think going back to Todd's question, it's not just about the renewals and the money and the retention piece. It's actually being a product expert. You should know how to use that product inside and out. You should be able to close your eyes and navigate your entire platform. I don't care how deep it is. I really don't care. Like you should be able to close your eyes and navigate, off camera, off video, and know how to navigate somebody through that. Because they are paying you either to save time, save money, or make money. And a CSM can often accomplish all that. So to answer your question, yes, I do think there is merit for that. Like I don't think Zoom needs CSMs. Like you install Zoom, you send a link, they jump in. Like, yes, I'm sure there's like different features. You can add animations and the balloons pop up and you can add a little, voting poll or breakout rooms, but like, I don't think you need a CSM. That's no shade on Zoom. I like Zoom if Zoom's listening. But you don't need that. A lot of tools are so much more self-service now, right? So I think a CSM is when a tool is super complex, when people have untapped like potential and opportunity in there, as well, you have the data set. So for example, for me, for a subscription platform, I know the best way to run a dog food subscription in Europe. I've been doing this for 3 years. I work with the biggest brands. I can guide a brand to say, hey, you know what? You're not doing the right things compared to all the best practices in your zone or in your vertical rather. You should probably try to do this. And then I think all the other platforms, whether it's Shopify or Spotify or Salesforce, that's where the CSM says, hey, what are you doing? You're going way out into left field. Let's come back onto center. Let's do the right things. I've seen this play out time and time again. You don't want to be doing that. So I think a CSM doesn't necessarily have to be a level up, but it's actually a strategist. It's actually a guide. I always like to say you are the guide in the jungle. And that's why for myself, I've had companies reach out to me to say, hey, we're thinking of expanding here. What do you think about that? They're literally asking me on a $500 million business, does it make sense to go to country X and why or why not? Mm. That is when you have the true partnership. That's when you're not just a vendor. That's when somebody's coming to you. And that's where the role of CSM can come into play. It's not about the QBRs. It's not about the NPS. It's not about the CSAT. It's about, I trust this person with my business. I value their opinion. I value their insight. And I value their knowledge. What do you think we should do, Noah?
So Noah, I'm going to ask one follow-up question. Go back to you, Todd. Sorry, we're doing 2 at a time. We usually just alternate.
I know you're throwing me, man. I can never speak up because Casey wants to monopolize everything as usual. Jeez.
So Noah, to become that strategist, to become the person, and again, this is, I'm not going to say this to you, and please don't take any offense. But it seems like this ideology comes very natural to you. I know you've worked at it, and I know you've gotten good at it, but I'm going to say you have some God-given talent in being able to grab this.
Sure.
There's other people that, hey, they're going to work hard. They're that first bucket you're talking about. Hey, you're going to work hard. You're going to find success. What would be 2 or 3 skills that you feel that you would want a CSM, a today CSM, to know? I heard negotiations. Are you doing some change management? Is someone going to go try to understand that a little bit more? Like, what are the top 2 or 3 skills you think a CSM needs to have today? And any recommendations of books or things like that you would recommend to CSMs out there listening?
Sure. So the first that popped into my mind was work ethic and transparency. So I want to unpack both of those. Work ethic for me, I like to say I'm a blue collar, work ethic with a white collar education, right? When people say I'm a PhD, okay, yeah, I have a decent brain in my mind, but I did landscaping all my life. I worked in kitchens all my life. I used to work 7 days a week. I'm no stranger to blue collar work ethic. So when it comes to work ethic, I think the CSMs, for you when you're jumping into that role, recognize this is not a 9-to-5 job. You're going to have an incident sometimes at 10 o'clock at night. One of your clients might have a board meeting the next day and they need a data pull or they need an analysis. They need some type of information. And the work ethic is what puts people above others, whether that's in sports, whether that's in being a CSM or a salesperson. I think we can all kind of are a testament to say we all know somebody who's crushing it and they have a crazy work ethic. They're not just chilling in Barbados and sipping on margaritas all day. They're really working at their practice. And I think for me as a CSM, like I used to do 8 onboarding calls a day, per day, not a week, per day. And so I had that muscle and that training So now I can just jump into a call, and I've done it so many times, but you have to work at it. And I think when people realize, okay, this is going to take several years, and I really don't necessarily believe in the 10,000 hour rule as much as it is the iterations, right? So it's like for your podcast, your first podcast wasn't so great, but now you got them hundreds of them. So you're getting used to it. You know the iterations, you know the best practices, you know the best ways to do things. And it's the same thing with the CSM, but you only learn that through the work. There's no other way to get the visions. There's no other way to get the reps. You have to do those calls. You have to make those mistakes. You have to have those turns. You have to have those screw ups. I've done so many screw ups. So many. I can't even tell you on this call. It'd be too many. The call would go for 5 hours. So work ethic is first and foremost. That has to be there. The second thing is transparency. I actually believe when there's an incident or a problem or a failure with a customer, how you respond with transparency will set the expectation of the relationship for the rest of the time. So I'll tell you an example. I had a customer many years ago. There was a very large incident that brought their website down. Some CSMs would say, oh, there was a back-end problem, there was a data issue, there's a server issue, whatever, some type of smoke and mirrors. But I said, no. We went live with the wrong site, and that's why your site is down right now. Obviously, they're unhappy. Obviously, they're super upset. We solved it. We moved forward. But how do you think they respected me moving forward? Because they knew that I would tell the truth. It has nothing to do with, oh, this product is on the roadmap in 2 months and it comes to fruition, or I'll get back to you tomorrow morning and you email them back. Sure, those are nice and that's helpful. But when things go wrong, can you be transparent? Because if you are transparent, when mistakes happen, and mistakes will always happen, they will trust you so much more. So they will trust you in the bad times, which then means that they will trust you in the good times. And I think a lot of CSMs do this roundabout way of talking where I'll look into it. I'm not sure what's going on. It might be a bug. Like if something's screwed up, tell them it's screwed up. It was a bug. We're fixing it. And they'll be like, great, thanks so much for telling me. And I do think I have an advantage of living in Europe because Europeans are very, very direct. So I live in Finland. We have this saying where silence is silver and words are gold. So be very careful what you are saying. Do not talk just to talk. And so I realized this through working with all the Scandinavian countries and the German countries and the Belgian countries and the French companies. Like they talk very directly and very openly and very honestly, which is a lot easier than many Americans and Canadians how we speak. And I'm calling myself out on here because I'm Canadian as well. I mean, I've been here for 10 years, so I'm basically half-half. But the transparency goes so much further with the relationship. And I think a lot of CSMs, they don't want to own that burden of, hey, we released a product too early, it screwed up. Hey, we had a really big incident, sorry about that. Like, if you are transparent with your customers in the darkest times and the biggest screw-ups, and you're owning it, it's just going to lead to such incredible results. I promise you. I know at the time it's tensing and it's nerve-wracking, but I think the hard work and the transparency is what separates so many CSMs. Because most of the people are not that hardworking. They want to just do 9 to 5, call it a day. Well, then you're not going to grow. You're not going to get the extra reps in. And you're not going to be transparent with your customers when something goes wrong. A good customer, doesn't care when something goes wrong. They care that you acknowledge that it went wrong and how are you going to fix it and how are you going to ensure that doesn't happen again. And we're so scared of conflict. We're so scared to be honest. We're so scared to be like, hey, you know what? I screwed up. I said the wrong thing. And I said the wrong thing. And 3 days later, I'd be like, hey, you know what? I was super off about the product timeline. It's actually not going to be 3 months. It's going to be 3 years. Super sorry. What's the alternative? They write to me in 3 months and say, hey, where's that product? And I'd be like, oh, they remembered. Oh, no. Right? And so like people are so scared to be transparent and honest. And that's why I have a big problem, I think, with a lot of leadership and a lot of people on LinkedIn where everybody wants to say it's rainbows and butterflies and everything's great. It's like, if you're a CSM, you're a punching bag and you better be able to take the hits. Just flat out.
I didn't want to say anything right away because I wanted that one to hang out there, Noah, because I think it's good. One of the things that I think is, at least I love this idea of transparency. I think a lot of times what people, what I see CSMs do is they want to be transparent, but they still want to take the side of the customer. And what they end up doing is they try to shift the blame away from them. But they might blame the company, but they want to protect the relationship. So I didn't screw up, right? The company screwed up. Oh, I'm so sorry. My company is so dumb. Let me go help you. And so I actually really love the fact that I would basically what I would say is I love the idea of transparency, but I also love the idea of taking extreme ownership too. Because one of the things that is dangerous is I see CSMs who will admit that a problem happened, but they will try to blur their culpability in it as a CSM, right? Because there's like, well, I can't do wrong. My company could screw up. Oh man, that dumb company. And then it's like it turns into this like almost like this complaining fest between the customer and the CSM, which is like super bad. So I love your point. I want to add that because I love your point of like, you need to own it as a CSM. You got to be willing to take the hits, not dodge them so that the rest of the company that can't defend itself is also getting just totally blasted too. So
100%, right? And so Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink, hero of mine, incredible book, Extreme Ownership. Everybody should read it. And also Field Tactics and Leadership. Everybody should read that. So those are some book recommendations. Let's go read all of Jocko.
Yeah, that's true. We'll start drinking his protein milk too. It'll be great.
Yeah,
why not?
Go Jocko, go. But I think you raised a great point where it's like, oh, it wasn't me, it was the engineering team. It's like, it doesn't matter if it was the engineering team. It is your customer. It may not be your problem, but it is your issue. Period. It doesn't matter if you didn't write the code. It doesn't matter if the marketing team wrote the wrong dates on the conference and somebody's there a week early. That's your fault. Because what could you have done to figure that out? Could you have braced them? Could you have let them know, hey, we're doing some code changes? Could you have verified that the conference data they saw correctly in the email and you also verified it? Of course, I'm not saying to take on all the world's problems, but anything that you could have done. And that's why I think back to my first term and I told you about it. It's like, John, how could you cancel on me? It's like, well, did I do enough? Did I make sure he was good? Did I ask if he was looking for competitors? Did I ask if his pricing was okay? Did I ask if he was seeing value? No. Churn. It's all my fault. Anybody that churns on me is my fault. Even if it's a better competitor, even if their pricing is better, my fault. And people don't take any responsibility or ownership. They want to blame Trump. They want to blame Elon. They want to blame whoever the Prime Minister of Canada is. I don't even know. We're having elections. Who knows? I don't even vote because I don't think I can anymore. So I do agree with you. It's like, you cannot have this triad of like, I'm your CSM, I'm just the messenger, don't shoot me. It's like, no. You are the one to get shot. And you better take those bullets, put your body armor on, go figure out what the problem is, and come back with a solution. And that's why it comes back to, like, you have to be able to be a veteran punching bag. Because products are going to screw up. Information is going to get wrong. You're going to say the incorrect thing. And you have to be able to own that conversation. Because people are too scared about conflict. People are so scared to be wrong. People are so scared to like look not genius level. It's got screwed up a billion times. I've lost company's biggest customer before. I'm a human being. I screw up. I win. I lose. Whatever. Right? But like, people have all this pressure and people want to have this like facade around them. And we're like, oh, I can do no wrong. I think we all screw up. We all make mistakes. And that's okay. And then the customer responds to that in a humanistic way. Hey, you know what, Casey, I'm super sorry about that. I did promise you that the product would be ready in a month. It's actually going to be pushed out 6 months. I just want to let you know so there's no surprises. You think Casey's going to be angry at me for telling him truth? No. And I'm like, oh, sorry, the product team lied to me. It's actually going to be 3 months. I know they're always lying to me. I'm sorry about that. What are you doing, right? Because as you said, Todd, my company is my first priority. The customer is a close second. Anybody who says the customer comes first is lying. Your company comes first, because that's reality. Because if you're doing everything the customer said, you'd be building all these random products, you'd be giving your product away for free, and you'd be, dropping everything you do at a drop of a hat because everything became urgent for one customer. So when people say the customer is always right, I don't believe that. You should actually be able to fire customers first and foremost. And I think that your company always comes first. Your customers are a close second, but your company is first, always.
No, as I hear you talk, I just want to add this little thought because I had it while you were talking. I'm like, Noah, wait, you're saying you can't do all these things, but then you went and flew out on your birthday. And I think the thing I want to make clear of what Noah is saying is it can be this and that. It's not always this or that, right? I can have extreme ownership and go fly out on my birthday, but I can also be transparent and say, this is what I can do for you, customer. And if that doesn't meet your needs, then, hey, I know the value I delivered. You see the value delivered. And if you want to go try that with somebody else, that's your prerogative, right? Like, I hope people understand that as you're giving these examples and you're like, wait, that's way over here and that's way over here. It's this and that. It's not this or that, right? And what you're always trying to find a little bit, in some cases, a little bit of that Goldilocks zone, right? Where it's just right. And so that's where that expertise, that's where trying and consistently giving your thoughts and your opinions on this, and you fail and you have success, and then you learn and you learn and you learn, and then it just becomes natural and it becomes a habit where you're not even thinking about it. You just know, hey, I've seen this 1,000 times over. This is what I'm going to approach with this. So I just wanted to make that know what you're saying resonates with me. I had that thought of like, wait. You just said this, then you said this, but it's like, no, he means both. And so
I
I just
do.
want to make that clear with everybody. Awesome, Noah. Great job. Todd, you always get the last question.
Well, I have one other thing that's
down on something.
I have one other thing before we wrap up. I know we're getting close to the end here now, but you said something that I didn't have a chance to bring up earlier that it's been rattling around in my brain, so I have to get it out before we leave, which is the idea of when Casey asked about like should you have a CSM or not, or should you charge for CSMs? You said something that I really, really liked, and I wanted to just see if we could drill in one layer deeper. You basically said that a CSM needs to exist if the product is really really complex, or if there's untapped potential within the product. And what I think is interesting about that is that it could be like your product's really complex, so you need help, or your product has untapped potential and that needs help, even if it's not complex, or it's a mix of both. And I guess the question that like has been rolling around in my brain for the last few minutes is, what do we do for CSMs who are not really, because I would guess there's almost always untapped potential. If you are a CSM and you're supporting any type of customer, whether your product is perceived as simple or not, there is untapped potential. How do you get good as a CSM at being able to identify untapped potential for a customer? Because that's been just something I've been thinking about a lot. So I want to give you a minute or two before we wrap up here to get a sense of like, how would you, when you talk about untapped potential, how do you unlock that?
Look at your customer as if they're your parents. Okay, so just hear me out. If I look at all my customers as my parents, and my parents are in their 70s, they're still trying to figure out how to use their iPhone and do stuff like that, and use Uber. I think they got Uber the first time like last week when they were in Dallas. I'd view my customer to say, hey, you're my parents. What are you not doing that I can help you with? And that is the untapped potential. Because it's not that they are naive or they're stupid. It's that they don't know things that they don't know about. They don't know what they don't know. Like my first time my parents ordered Uber, I'm like, oh, it just comes to the house, you can schedule it. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. But they didn't know that they don't know. And so when it comes to the untapped potential, it's just viewing your clients as your parents who you want to help so desperately, and you do anything for them. And so when you're thinking like, oh, do they have a gap here? Do they have a gap here? It's like, of course they do. And you know the gap, and you want to give. It's like, what about this? Have you tried that? Do you know you could do this? You could do that. What about this? Have you thought of that? Have you tried to do this? And they're like, oh no, I didn't even think about that. And so I think when you view it as not trying to find holes, but actually trying to expose information that they did not even know existed. And so I think when it comes down to like really intensive platforms, or even a very simple platform, it might be somebody who's, let's go back to the Zoom example. They might never know that they could do breakout rooms or they could do polls. And that might be an unlock for them. It might be a huge unlock for their entire organization. And they just did not know that that feature existed. But if you treated them like your parents, like, Mom, do you know you could do this? Dad, do you know you could do this? Mom, do you see this? Dad, they have this new feature. It's so cool. And then you'd unlock all the different things, and you'd approach that with a value and empathetic and a true helping mindset, rather than being like, I need them to adopt, I need their health score to go up, I gotta make sure that they're using every little thing. It's like, if you view them as your parents, you want to help them as much as humanly possible. If you're a good, child, hopefully, or at least your parents were good to you, I hope. Mine were amazing. So I always view it as, like, as you said, like, how do you find those holes and those opportunities? View them as your parents, and how would you want their business to perform? What are they not doing to improve 1% or to make their life a little bit easier, a little bit quicker? So I know that's a little bit of a meta kind of viewpoint, but I've always found that very, very helpful. And my customers can feel that with me. It's like, what are you doing? Don't be doing that. And I'll tell them directly. I've had many conversations. I say, Casey, do you mind if I be super direct with you? And they're like, yeah, please. I'm like, do not do that. And they're like, okay, great. Thank you for telling me. That's what they want to hear. They want to be like, great idea, Casey. And in your mind, you're as a CSM, like, that is the stupidest idea in the world. You're going to go waste millions of dollars, and all your employees are going to think you're stupid. And then you're going to come back to me 3 months like, that was a stupid idea. You should have stopped me. But if you look at them as your parents and you were really trying to guide them down the jungle or, a rocky road, guide them with intent and guide them with humility and guide them with like true honesty. And people don't want to do that. People just want to go through the motions and make sure they're adopting using these features. It's like maybe they don't want to use the calculator on their iPhone. Maybe they don't want to use iMessage. Maybe they don't want to use WhatsApp, but they really want to use Uber. So it would save them a lot of time because let's say my parents aren't, but both my parents drive, but let's say they weren't driving. I'm like, if you use this one app, it'll pick you up around the world. You could be in Finland, you could be in Dallas, you could be in Toronto. Blow their mind. It blew their mind. Transparently, it blew their mind when they realized how they could use Uber. They didn't care about the compass. They didn't care about the calculator. And so when you approach that same type of thought process to your customers, is if they're my parents, what are they not doing? What can I do to blow their mind? How can I help their business grow? How can I let them see more value of the product? It changes the mind frame from this is a one-way relationship, but I got to make sure that they like me, to how can I help them along this journey that they don't really know? Because again, going back to what I said, you as a CSM, a product expert, you must know everything. Which means by definition, if you know everything, they do not know everything. So that's how I view that.
I'm very glad I asked that question because I think a lot of people treat their customers like children, and treating the way you treat a child is very different than the way you treat a parent. So really good mindset shift for people who say, man, my customers they're so dumb. They don't get it. They're like children. No, they're like parents. They're people you respect who have figured out their life. They just don't know what you know. So it's a very different mindset shift. So I love it. So good. All right, now I would drill into this child and parent relationship analogy way deeper, but we're at time. Let me do this. We have one question we always ask our guests at the end. This is SaaS Therapy. We've had a very therapeutic conversation. You've shared some great war stories of being a punching bag and a target for bullets. You've obviously been through the ringer a few times and have seen this in the past. If you could give one piece of advice to our audience today, because this is a therapy session, right? You have to walk away with homework. You have to walk away with something different. What would your homework assignment be for our audience today?
Well, there's two. It's very Finnish of me to say these two. So I'm going to preface this. There's two things when I want to get clarity in my life, what I do. And the first one, I actually did this right before our call, which is I went in the sauna, put it up to almost 100 degrees Celsius. No phone, no music, no nothing. And you're not wearing any clothes, by the way, so sorry, everybody in the West.
Be totally vulnerable here. That's an important part.
Yeah. Right. Be there with your thoughts. Because we're so caught up with Instagram and TikTok and the news and everything. But nobody really, we so rarely sit with our own thoughts from stimuli, from anything of that nature. So the first is the sauna. It's very important. It's very healthy for you. You can go to the gym if you don't have a sauna in your house. Finland has the most saunas in the world. Just as a side note, 3 million saunas for 5 million people. And the second one is go into a forest and walk. Same thing. No phone, no Joe Rogan podcast. No music, just walk. Because, again, you need clarity to actually be thinking about things. And when you have a lot of customers, maybe you have some churn, maybe you have a lot of things going on at home, we're so caught up in the busyness of the world and, the ice baths and the carnivore diet, all these different things. I'm like, no. Go take a sauna. Go walk in the forest and ground yourself with yourself. Quiet your mind and observe your thoughts. Because I view this very differently than meditation because I'm a lot more active. I need to be engaged. And so walking to the Finnish forest has always been a place where I go to calm my mind. So it could be a creek. It could be a park nearby. It could be anything that's around your home or your area. But I would say go to a forest if you do not have a sauna, because I really think almost all of life is a mental battle. And if you don't take time to really observe your thoughts and what you're going through, look, sometimes I'll say it on this podcast. Sometimes I'm talking to myself out loud in the forest. I'm okay with saying that. And I'm actually talking about what I'm thinking about. How do I want to improve? How do I want to approach that renewal call? How do I want to change this or change that or optimize this or optimize that? And I'm not ashamed to say it because I think there's a lot of things that people are pushing down our throats. You got to wake up at 5 a.m. You got to do the cold plunge and you got to do the sauna. Then you got to have 5 eggs and you got to go run on the treadmill. It's like going back to basics, which is sitting in a really hot room with your thoughts and walking in nature's forest. I think that would be my therapy that I do, and I would really encourage others to do so as well.
No, I love it. Thank you. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll let you get back to it. SaaS Therapy is brought to you by Brainstorm. the SaaS platform for SaaS adoption. Learn more at brainstorminc.com.